Pues este es un día muy especial para nosotros, pues tenemos a una directora muy importante para el festival, una directora a quien le tenemos mucho cariño por su obra, también por lo generosa que es. Yo tuve la oportunidad de conocer a Andrea Štaka en el 2019, si no me equivoco, en el Festival de Cine de Berlín. Pero bueno, su filmografía y algunas de sus películas yo ya las había visto antes, un tiempo atrás, ¿no? Andrea Štaka es una de las directoras suizas más importantes que tiene Suiza en la actualidad. Andrea, este año le estamos dedicando un foco con todo su trabajo como directora. Un cortometraje, Hotel Belgrado, y un documental llamado Yugodivas, que algunos de ustedes ya han visto, una película que puede llegar a sublimarnos en muchos sentidos. Un documental sumamente cinematográfico y conmovedor, o que apela a las emociones y a los sentimientos, a la reintegración como ser humano a través de este retrato que se acerca a 5 o 6 artistas que abordan diferentes disciplinas. Estos dos, entre estos de documental, Yugodivas y Hotel Belgrado, pues Andrea empezó a cobrar mucho reconocimiento a nivel internacional en festivales de cine como Sundance, como Rotterdam. Y después, bueno, Andrea hizo una ópera prima, Fraulein, película que ganó Leopardo de Oro en el Festival de Cine de Locarno, además de presentarse en el Festival de Cine de Sarajevo, en donde también ganó el Corazón de Sarajevo, en el Festival de Cine de Rotterdam, entre otros grandes festivales de cine. Más adelante hace la película Cure, una película que también tuvo una gran recepción a nivel internacional. Y bueno, pues la más reciente, que es cuando tuvimos oportunidad de conocernos en persona, es Mare, película que se estrena en el Festival de Cine de Berlín en la sección Panorama. Andrea tiene una productora que fundó junto con Thomas Imbach, a quien ustedes también conocen muy bien, pues ha venido 2 veces a México, y Andrea es productora de una gran parte de sus películas. Estamos hablando de la casa productora Oco Films, y bueno, para nosotros es muy importante tener esta cercanía, este lazo con el cine suizo, con los cineastas, en este caso con una cineasta como Andrea, que permite relacionarnos con un cine poderoso, con un cine que también intenta relacionarse a nivel formal con la imagen y con el sonido, rompiendo ciertos estándares o cánones industriales. Y este año, pues agradecerle a Andrea habernos dado la posibilidad de proyectar todas sus películas, su filmografía. Vinimos intentándolo esto desde los últimos 2 años, pero no pudimos hacerlo antes porque pues, se cruzó la pandemia y lo tuvimos que retrasar, pero creo que fue el mejor momento para que Andrea pudiera estar aquí con nosotros en México y acercarnos a su cine, a un cine poderoso, lleno de personajes femeninos, transformadores, pues para una sociedad. Andrea, bienvenida, y les quiero pedir un fuerte aplauso para ella.
Muchas gracias, Claudio. No, thank you very much for your nice words about my films and my work. And I'm very, very happy to be here. I've been in Mexico now for a week, and I really like it a lot. And I'm also very proud to show my films here in front of you, the students, but also in the Cineteca. And well, Claudia and me, we were thinking a bit how to structure the masterclass, whether I should talk for 2 hours about my finished films, that's always very easy, you know, because once they're finished, you kind of know what the journey was, or whether I should more talk about how it is when you start doing a project and how it would be if you were motivated to do short films after the masterclass. So maybe I can talk a couple of minutes about how I approach the films, and then I would like to show you a short film that I did during COVID, during the lockdown. It was a film I did with very little money in a very short time. And I remember when I was a student, film student, that I was always a bit scared of the projects, you know, because you think, oh, is my idea really good? You know, am I gonna become famous with it? Will people understand what I wanna show? And then you kind of get lost in the how you think something should be, and you forget a bit about, you know, just really starting to do a film, starting to proceed an idea without being scared or thinking too big. Just, you know, just exploring, experimenting and exercising. So that's why we would like you to do something also of your own work after the masterclass. I can maybe say that when I started making films, I was about 18, 19. There was a difficult time in former Yugoslavia, where I'm originally from. So I'm Swiss. I was born in Switzerland. I'm originally from former Yugoslavia, and I have those two cultures in me that are very different. And that has kind of always was part of my life. It's maybe like if some of you are not from Mexico City and come from another place and live here, you're sometimes torn. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's difficult. So I'd always had two sides in me. And the war started in former Yugoslavia, so I was very much eager to raise questions I didn't have answers to. So maybe for me it's important in my films to raise questions and not to always know exactly how it will be at the end, or to give a message that is clear, but more to ask questions. And my films have been very personal so far, which doesn't mean that they always talk about me, myself, but I've always talked about a world that I know. So to my students in Switzerland, I always say you have two options. You either talk about something you know, your life, your friends, your town, your emotions, or then you talk about something you don't know if you want to, I don't know, make Avatar or Star Wars, but then you have to really research a lot. If you want to do something that is not very close to you, you have to do a lot of research and really explore that field. So I was more staying in the personal side. And yeah, so Claudio said I made these couple of films. They always brought me, in a sense, when I started them, I had a strong feeling, like an emotion, or I start off with an image, or really a picture, or I start off with a person, or I start off with a subject. And then from there, I try to explore and make a story of it. And what is also important, I've been thinking in the past couple of days what to tell you. And I've also been watching films here. And what I think is really important to me, it's not for every filmmaker, once you choose a subject or a person, to kind of think how you want to portray this subject person with images. So that what I always loved about filmmaking is to make images out of, if a person is lonely, to find a position of this character in the room that shows loneliness. Or if somebody's angry, to kind of go with the camera and show with the camera, underline it that the person is angry. So you have all these different means in filmmaking, how you can support an emotion. You know, let's say he thought you that, I guess, when you were watching films. So that's a big thing for me, to start with something and then create a universe. Like, it can be a very simple universe, and then maybe we can watch the short film. It's 10 minutes long. So during COVID, I had the lockdown. I was asked to do a short film for a couple of thousand francs, which is not much in Switzerland. It's a couple of $1,000s. You can, it's very simple. And there was no subject, but I had to kind of do a proposal. So I decided to film my family and to see, to kind of try and capture the atmosphere that I felt in the lockdown, not be able to move, to go out. So I tried to capture that with the images, but also with the sound. So we can look at it, and then I'll tell you a little bit how I approached it, how I made it. And then we can talk about what kind of short sketches, films you could do in the next 2 weeks.
Sí, sobre todo creo que en esta idea de plantear esta masterclass también como una especie de workshop que puede relacionarse desde que empezamos a ver sus películas con algunos de ustedes, los que no las han visto, que también hay algunos que no las vieron, todavía tienen oportunidad de ir hoy a la Cineteca Nacional, y si quieren sumarse a este taller y participar y también hacer una película con lo que estamos haciendo, pues son bienvenidos también a participar, a hacerlo. La idea es que seamos activos, que estemos todo el tiempo pensando en filmar y que sientan que las herramientas de registro que tienen, que puede ser la cámara, un celular, otra cámara, a lo mejor un poco más robusta, no lo sé, ustedes saben cuáles son las herramientas de registro con las que cuentan, con cualquiera de ellas es posible hacer películas. Aquí la intención y lo que creo que Andrea quiere decirles y enfocar es un poco relacionar esta idea del cine autorreferencial, del cine personal, del espacio con el que ustedes se relacionan, del contexto al que ustedes pertenecen, y que a partir de ahí puedan empezar ustedes a tirar líneas con lo que observan, con lo que pueden construir en ese espacio, en donde deciden poner su mirada para sembrar y que empiece a florecer dentro de ese espacio, o esta idea fílmica o esta idea cinematográfica, y que a partir de eso pues, tengan las posibilidades y el coraje de empezar a hacer películas, ¿no? Películas que son importantes para ustedes. Creo que el cine primero es importante para nosotros, y lo que queremos representar o tomar de esa realidad o de construir a través de la ficción tiene que ser primero importante para nosotros, y eventualmente cobrará una importancia con otros, ¿no? Con un público, con la idea de encontrarse con un público a través de una proyección, con otra persona que también vea o sienta lo mismo, y que a partir de eso, pues bueno, puedan empezarse a conectar distintas situaciones que a nivel emocional, como lo hacen en estos casos o con estas películas que ustedes vieron, Hotel Belgrado, Yugo Divas, pues son películas que conectan a nivel emocional a sus personajes, y que se detonan pues, a partir de distintas situaciones o contextos, y en donde cada uno tiene una diferente perspectiva. Pues aquí pasa lo mismo, ¿no? A lo mejor con nuestros personajes, con los entornos conocidos o desconocidos, pero que realmente nosotros principalmente podemos llegar a tener como una conexión, ¿no? Y que sabemos cómo podemos manipularlos, tergiversarlos, cambiarlos e irlos adaptando desde este lugar de realidad, que al final pues esa realidad cuando se filma pues es transformada y empieza a convertirse en una ficción, pues, sin importar que nuestra idea sea documental o cine de ficción, en esta idea de empezar a borrar pues estas fronteras que existen entre el cine, ¿no?
Yeah, so let's see my mom, my son, and me. You can project it now, who's there. And then we'll talk about how the use of characters, of image, and of sound. And while you watch it, you can already look at those elements.
Ok, voy a pedir por favor que apaguen las luces que tenemos a los costados para poder proyectar de la mejor manera estas dos películas. Primero vamos a ver una. Bien.
my mom, my son, and me, not postcards.
In vielen Mal ist die Leute im Kino gelaufen, dann sind Kinos zugegangen. Eine Art Schwerelosigkeit ist über mich gekommen. Vielleicht auch eine Erleichterung, nach so viel Arbeit Zwangspause hinzulegen. Ich habe aber nicht lange ausgehalten. Ich habe noch 2 16 mm Filmmaterial im Kühlschrank gehabt und habe eine relativ seltsame Situation eingefangen. Das Material ist schwarz vom Labor zurückgekommen. Irgendwie passt es, habe ich gedacht. Aber dann habe ich einfach nochmal alles gefilmt.
Oh, schön, ich bin gut. Sie haben ganz viel von. Was denn? Oh, sie bringen uns so. Das war schon 6 Wochen letztendlich. Also ich werde wieder mal für die Session fähig. Weiß nicht. Ich Maximum kann man noch nicht so viel machen. Nur keine Interaktion. Nur 2 Meter Abstand machen und dann sie nicht schmutzig. Jetzt sind die Leute wieder 20 Wochen. Bist du froh, dass die natürlich Freunde alleine? Ja. Was hat man Fußball? Nichts. Schickt mir das Foto aus dem Traum. Das Mare-Plakat habe ich irgendwo dort. Sein Kommentar: Mare, kein Vertrauen. Ich spüre doch eine Geschichte, wenn ich das Plakat sehe. Und sage nur, also ich jetzt will nicht. Also, was ist manchmal anders als in der Schule?
Man hat eine liebe Lehrer neben sich, die dir gut helfen kann.
Du erzählst halt, also wir erzählen einfach gar nichts über den Schloss. Und ich habe das Gefühl, die Herren und die Schule.
Man lernt es ein bisschen schneller.
Also wisst ihr jetzt, was der Unterschied zwischen einem Virus und einer Bakterie ist? Ja, nein. Also, Bakterien sind, das ist der Virus trägt und der Virus, also Bakterien wie der Virus übertragen. Ja.
Mir richtet Anja schickt mir Yoga-Videos. Im Belgrad lässt es zwischen 5 Uhr am Abend und 6 Uhr morgens raus. Sie hockt mit ihrer Mutter, ihrer Cousine, ihrem Vater und ihrem Großvater in einer kleinen Wohnung mit einem kleinen Balkon. Hey, wie geht's euch eigentlich? Sie sagt, die Mami und der Papi streiten viel länger seit Corona und dann essen die ganze Zeit. Und werden sich alle auf dich. Soll ich mir das Yoga-Video schicken?
Und die Lebenszeit von Corona, hat sie mitgemacht von ihr? Was hat?
So wie von der einfach mal so Welche Normalien sind wir jetzt nicht? Die haben wir gewonnen.
Also,
Vorne hast du abgestellt. Du hast abgestellt, dass du nichts aufgenommen.
ich habe nicht drucken. Und sehr aktives Modell, die hat sowas so, also Freiheit.
Ich bin gar nicht so weit gekommen mit Aufschwung, wie ich gedacht habe. Eigentlich nur bis zur ersten Fotoschachtel. Zuerst habe ich gedacht, oh nein, das ist alles ein bisschen kitschig, jetzt Fotos nachschauen. Aber vielleicht ist es einfach so, wenn man so viel Zeit die Heim mit sich selber verbringt. Am Tag vom Lockdown vor 50 Jahren ist meine Mutter aus Sarajevo mit meinem Vater in die Schweiz gekommen. Vor lauter Aufregung haben wir ganz vergessen, das zu feiern.
Wo ich mit der Nina gekommen bin, hatte ich schreckliche Heimweh, also schreckliche Heimweh. 50 Jahre. 15. März.
Das war nicht so gut.
Fall im Jakob, aber richtig so vermissen, nicht weil ich weiß, du bist da. Ich weiß, was vermissen heißt. Ganzes Leben lang hat man Familie und jemand, aber in dem Sinne nicht. Und vermissen, vermisst weißt du, Familie.
Deine Angst war nicht so, dass du den Untergangsschluss zurückgekommen bist?
Nein, habe ich nicht. Wenn ich einmal in der Woche gehe, einkaufen, wo kein Mensch ist, und da sind 2 Meter, 3 Menschen in mir gestellt, die vor und die Maske und so gut wie unmöglich, was ich bekomme. Wir 3, Max und der Rudi, jetzt mischen wir uns nicht miteinander.
Das ist jetzt auch gut. Und eigentlich können wir so gut nicht sagen. Das ist jetzt ein bisschen was ist gut, oder? Das ist mir so zugefallen, dass wirklich uns zugefallen. Das ist so wie das Gefühl, ich hätte müssen, so für die letzten Jahre.
Meine Schauspielerin Mirjam Karanovic hat sich kurz vor dem Lockdown eine Schulter gekauft. Und wie sie jetzt zwischen 5 Uhr am Nachmittag und 6 Uhr morgens rauskam, trägt sie noch in der Wohnung hin und her. Im Skype hat sie mir gesagt, zum Glück sieht mich niemand. Gestern ist jetzt fast 2 Kilometer getrennt. Von der Küche, im Garten, durchs Wohnzimmer und wieder zurück. Kannst du mal umstellen mit den FCC-Kalender und die Fenster?
Ja, ich frage mich auch, ob das alles vorbei ist und ob es vorbei geht und so.
Ich kann mir überhaupt nicht vorstellen, wie nachher alles anders ist und die Leute wirklich so weniger fliegen und wie heiß sind und wie am liebsten oder genau nicht so wie vorher.
Das ist eine schwierige Frage. Ich glaube schon, dass ich nicht so, also ich habe Erfahrung.
Schule fängt am Montag im Halbklassenunterricht wieder an. Der Hort noch nicht. Die Eltern müssen noch 4 Wochen lang organisieren. Ich habe meiner Mutter gesagt, sie soll am Sonntag zu uns machen. Einen Meter haben wir ja neben dem Balkon. Mein Antrag bleibt, er ist meine, auch wenn die Welt sich am Verändern ist.
So in this film, you see what I did with that task. So I had these 2 rolls of 16 millimeter film in my fridge from Mare, from my feature film. And then I went to a filmmaker friend to ask him for his Bolex camera, for the 16 millimeter camera. And he explained me everything. And there's one little thing on the Bolex. We kind of didn't know whether to put up or down. So we thought, yeah, up is good. And I filmed for 2 days, 3 days, sent the material to the film lab in Zurich. We have still one. And then they didn't call me back. So when I called them, Nicole from the lab, she said, you know, I was scared calling you because there's nothing on the film. So actually, it wasn't supposed to be up on the camera, but down. So it was kind of, I felt it fit with that lockdown situation where we all did a lot of things by ourselves, you know. So my friend said, don't do the film again, just do something else. And I said, no, you know, I'll just film it again. And that is a bit the thing that in filmmaking, we have to be quite persistent. You know, sometimes it's hard, sometimes not, but we really have to be persistent, you know, because each film, even if it's a short or a long, it's a long journey and it's never really easy. So I filmed it all again. On the Bolex, I don't know if you've ever seen it or worked on film, you know, with a film camera records just the image and the sound is separate. So as I was a one-woman show, I couldn't, and the Bolex is very loud, so I couldn't film the image and record at the same time. So I filmed just silent images, and then from time to time I have a little Zoom sound recorder, or with the phone even, I recorded the boys talking or my mother, and I tried kind of to, you know, I tried to, as you said, Claudio, my films are always, I try to visualize emotions that I think are important. Not everybody has to work like that. But the lockdown was a special situation with, you know, with the children being at home, with not being able to really go out. We have a very small apartment, so when 5 people are in the room, it's like you can't move. And I try to capture this atmosphere of not knowing if the world will change. I mean, now I flew to Mexico, a long trip, but I wasn't flying for 2.5 years. And when I saw the film now, you know, when I asked Vanya, what do you think will be after Corona, will we fly again, forget about everything that was then? And it's, yeah, so it's kind of almost a snapshot of that moment. And so the sound we did afterwards. So Peter Brecker, who actually also does the sound for Thomas's films, he's a great sound designer. We asked ourselves, what exactly, how does that lockdown in Zurich sound? It's everywhere, it's different. How does it sound? And, you know, I realized during the lockdown that you could hear the birds much more because it was it was spring. And so the birds were very present, and kind of this repetition, you know, people, because you couldn't go out really, like jogging or what else was there? You know, the cooking. I mean, I was cooking all the time, you know, it was, and then ordering food, you know, the pizza in front of but now I'm swapping from sound to image. So in the sound, we really tried to capture that the sounds were more present than usual, because you were kind of more with yourself, you know, you didn't have that everyday distraction that we usually have. And so I had 3 weeks to finish it. I got a couple of days more because I messed up with the film material at the beginning. So I shot for 3 days, 4 days. Then I edited 2 days. Then we did the sound design in 2 days. So it was a very short and kind of nice work. So again, I don't know how you function, if for you it's easy to start preparing your films, to start creating something, or if there's also sometimes this fear, because making a film is such a, you know, it's such a long process and such a big thing. So what I was thinking would be interesting if all of you, or the ones who want to make a short piece, think of something that you want to explore in like between 3 and 10 minutes. So it can be a person. I was thinking, you know, it can be your mother, your sister, your best friend. It can be a place. It can be a park. It can be a building. It can be school. It can be a place that you really like. I encourage you to take something you have feelings for, you know, not just a street that you don't relate to, but something where you kind of sense something. It can be connected to joy, to interest, to fear, whatever, but a place that you like or you have memories to. Or it can also be a subject, but a subject is maybe a bit more difficult. I think it would be good if it's a person or a place. And then to try and either here, it's really an essay. So I worked very intuitively, you know. I was like, okay, I'm gonna dive into the thing of how does Corona feel for me and my family. So it can be something, you could work like that. Like, let's say if it's a street, you really start filming with your phones. I mean, today it doesn't have to be good quality, because first it's really important that we think about the ideas and the content. So you can do it with a phone, with a photo camera. It's not about for now, it's not about the quality of the image. And you can either, let's say it's a street. You go and you start filming for 1 day, and then you see what kind of material you have. Or you can make a concept and say, I want to show that this street is full of life, full of different life. In the morning, you have school children. At noon, you have other people. At night, it's really empty. You can make also a little story, and then think how when you choose your either place or the character you want to portray, how you want to do it. Here I did it very intuitively, you know, it's a very small apartment, so everything is very close because I didn't have enough space, you know, I couldn't do a lot of wide shots. But I really went with my feeling. But let's say if you want to show a place that you feel is kind of cold, then you can also take a camera that is much more formal. So it would be nice if you think a bit more extreme in a sense. Do you want to do something that is kind of personal and close and more intimate? Or you want to do something that is more, it can be also more formal, more like yeah, formal, ¿cómo se dice? It's, yeah. And then you see how we worked with sound. The sound is quite extreme. I mean, sound can change your film. My editor always says, you know, sound is 50% of the film. Image is 50% and sound, and it's really true. If this, you know, if here you would just have one song, it would be another film. Or if you, I don't know, if the birds weren't that extreme, or if it would just be completely different. And here the sound gives kind of has a point of view. Yes.
Sí, en ese sentido me gustaría, Andrea, ver if you can explain a little bit more about the process to work with film, this 16 millimeters and this Bolex camera, in order to make more tools around the lab process. Because you made this, you shoot during 3 days, more or less, and then you have to send this material to the lab. And how was the process at the lab, and then you can do this upgraded to the digitally, and then start to editing. If you could profound more about this.
So basically, when you work with film on the Bolex, you have a film roll that first I had to practice again how to put it into the film camera. Because it's not just a chip, you know, and you press record. It's really, you have to physically, like in the old photo cameras, you have to physically kind of put in the film. Then you have to, when you film, you have to work with a light meter because it's not automatic. So I forgot about all those things. And I was like, oh, I'll just use the 2 rolls in my fridge. And then I realized I have to, you know, learn again in how to put the film inside, then to have a light meter and measure the light when I shoot. Then on the Bolex, I think it's 3 minutes. One roll is 3 minutes of 16 millimeter. You can have bigger rolls in bigger cameras of 10 minutes. But so imagine you always have to kind of keep in mind how many minutes you have left on your film roll. So you don't start like a longer shot or scene when you're at the end of the film roll. Then you have to take it out in the dark, you know, out of the camera. So because I didn't have a lot of money for the film, I shot everything together and then send it to the lab. Then they process it, and then you just have to really, you're kind of scared for 2 days because you don't know how it will turn out. And once they process it, you have the negative, and then they digitize it. So you know, so they process the negative like with the photo film, and then they have a scanner. So the scanner, you all know how photo film looks? The old one, yeah? Okay, so then you scan it, and then you get a digital file. So when I received it, I received digital files that I could then import into my computer and edit.
Creo que aquí esto es importante, ella al haber filmado en 16 milímetros y hablar de que el material que probablemente era de 400, un pietaje de 400, pues te da estos minutos para poder filmar 3 minutos en material fílmico 16. Ustedes a la hora de filmar con una cámara digital, celular y demás, de pronto sienten que están más holgados para poder filmar y filman muchas otras cosas. A la hora de tener el material tan contado, tú tienes que tomar otro tipo de decisiones que son importantes para cuidar pues, tu material y no desperdiciarlo. En este caso, pues, bueno, creo que en esta digitalización del cine nos podría ayudar a ser más conscientes que el material que podemos filmar es muchísimo, pero a lo mejor ser más, de pronto más estratégicos, ¿no? Digo, no pasa nada si filman mucho, el material les puede llegar a servir, pero de pronto esta idea de observar más el personaje o qué es lo que quieren o el mismo entorno, pues les puede ir dando con el tiempo esta capacidad de ser más selectivos.
Yes, maybe you have to be more selective, but in a way, in essays, a bit you use your instincts also more, because You know, Mare, I don't know how many of you have seen Mare. The last feature film was shot on 16mm too. With a bigger camera, there you have 10 minutes of material. And when I said to the crew that we will film on film, everybody was really scared because they had forgotten the whole process. Because the process is that you have 10 minutes. It's much more expensive, so you can't just film around. You have to think a little bit beforehand what you want, this seleccionar. And then once you're on the set, everybody needs to be more concentrated because, and it's a bit more exciting also because, you know, you can't film everything and then decide at the end. So I personally think that there's projects who are good for that, where you have to just select a bit more beforehand, where you have to use your instincts more, you know. Let's say the street example, it's not the best example, but the street example. If you know that you have digital, you have 5 hours, you know, you stand on that street and you just film everything. You come to the editing and then you decide. It's not a wrong way, it's one way. But if you have film, you kind of have to stay there and wait for a good moment. And what is a good moment? I mean, there you have to use your, you know, instinct more to say, okay, or your eyes, or your kind of your perception of the moment. Okay, this is what I'm going to film. So you already do a selection before you start filming. And I think you can even, you know, if you do it with your iPhones or small cameras and you film the streets, you can say, no, I want to film everything, you know, the trees and the cars and everyone passing by. And then in the editing, I will take longer and really kind of see what my material is and edit an essay. Or you can say, no, I really want to be in the moment on that street and decide already, select while I'm there what I'm going to film. It's two different ways of working, and not one is better than the other. How is it with you? Like, who is interested in essays? Are you interested in essays or more like in feature classical narrative films? Is essay okay or is it like really boring?
No, creo que, bueno, no sé, puede responder un poco por ellos ahora. Igual ustedes, ahorita cuando abramos sesión de preguntas y respuestas, digo, creo que todos ustedes han podido ver cine ensayo, lo cual me parece que, pues, en esta idea de generar o empezar a desdibujar esta idea de la ficción o el cine documental o el cine de no ficción, pues nos puede empezar como a enrolar como en una idea práctica o importante para nosotros de empezar a hacer un cine más personal y que pueda ser posible de filmarse, ¿no? Sin importar cuántos recursos haya o no. Uh-huh. Y algo que decía Andrea hace un momento que me parece importante recapitular sería sobre estas decisiones formales que, pues, todo director tiene que hacer cuando está filmando, ¿no? Decisiones que tienen que ver con el uso de la música, el uso del sonido, cómo potencializarlo, hacia dónde llevarlo, incluso la imagen, cómo encuadra uno. O sea, todas estas son decisiones formales a través de la fotografía o a través del uso de los planos y de lo que uno decide encuadrar, pues, para alimentar ese espacio fílmico. Entonces, sin importar que sea con un teléfono o con una Zoom Recorder o con algún otro device que pueda permitirles capturar el sonido, pues bueno, se puede utilizar. Esas son decisiones que ustedes con el tiempo, con esta intuición, con este instinto que se va desarrollando filmando, por eso es tan importante que empiecen a hacerlo ustedes con ejercicios cortos, fílmicos, para que puedan seguir desarrollando este instinto y esta manera en donde ustedes, pues, se puedan sentir más cómodos a la hora de estar en un set de filmación. Y estar en un set, pues bueno, que a mí me choca la palabra set, no me gusta. Este espacio en donde ustedes deciden filmar una película, sin importar si es la casa o la tintorería de la esquina o el parque, o ya una película un poco más abundante en un espacio pues, categorizado por la industria, pues puedan ustedes sentirse cómodos o cómodas para poder establecer las reglas de su propio rodaje, ¿no?
Yeah. Well, there's two important things about that. One is when we talk about how you film it, we can't just think about how to film something. We have to think about what we want to film and what we want to tell to the audience. I do actually think, even if my films are personal, I do kind of want to reach people. You know, it's nice that all of you are here, that I'm not talking to myself. So I think when we're really honest about what we want to do and kind of have something to say, we do reach an audience, and that is important. So even the street example, you know, if you decide you have the street you really love, it's you know, you start filming the street, but I'm interested in how really you see that street. So there must be a feeling about that street. It's either you want to say that, you know, in this city maybe it's a sad street, or it's a street where I mean, the street has to say something about your town, how you see it, not how I see it who come here. So if I was your teacher, I would say, because there's so many ways of filmmaking and so many things you have to try in your studies, but it would be kind of nice if you all did a short essay, you know, with something you're really passionate about, whether it's a person or a place, and really kind of try and use your instinct and your feeling about that. And then, you know, next time you can do maybe a more narrative film. But because I would be really interested in seeing, let's say, you know, a grandmother or a mother or your best friend, you know, how do you film them do you decide to film them in their room, or do you go for a walk with them, or what is Mexico for you? Because here I do tell what Zurich is for me. You know, it's kind of, the apartment is okay. You see people are jogging, so it's kind of, they have the opportunity to do that. So it's kind of, you sense a little bit that middle class Zurich thing. That's my Zurich. So I would like to see in those short pieces what your town is and who you are. And I think even if later you do Star Wars 5, it's always one teacher, when I was at film school, we were talking about if films have to be personal or autobiographical. And he said, you know what, not every film needs to be autobiographical, but every film is personal. You know, even Alien, I mean, there's a lot of solitude as subject in the film. So it's, to the writers, they have to dig inside themselves what solitude means to them. You can't just randomly write anything. You know, even an action film has a certain, well, maybe, no, I can't talk about action films, but no, I can talk about Alien and the universe, but not action films. Maybe anyway, no, I have to think about action films.
Maybe Cobra for Sylvester Stallone or something like that. No.
It's the personal part. There must be something, but. So would you be up for doing something like that, or is that, huh? So it's really like a task, you know, think about, yeah.
Sí, maybe podemos tal vez abrir preguntas y respuestas para esta parte de esta clase magistral, hablar un poco con ellos y después poner la siguiente película y hablar de nuevo. No sé si alguno de ustedes quiere hacer alguna pregunta sobre lo que acabamos de ver o sobre lo que Andrea acaba de platicar. ¿Quién se anima? Una primera y después vienen muchas. ¿O nadie quiere filmar? Ah.
Okay, so I was wondering if, well, I actually am writing right now, kind of like a video essay for myself, not for this, but it would be like really incredible, you know, to match those two ideas. But I was wondering, for this specific short film, did you write a script, or it was just like filming, and in the editing, in the montage, you put it all together?
Okay, so I got, yeah, it would be nice if you have an essay, you know, just take one part of it that you have and do it in that little piece. It can be like a preparation for a longer thing. It was Swiss Television did kind of a competition, and so they said that you have to hand in one page. So I was like, you know, I didn't have anything to do, so okay. So I was thinking, like, what could I say about the lockdown? And then I thought, okay, you know, I'll just talk about the people around me, because that's kind of what the lockdown is, my family. So then I wrote it. I wrote about my son doing homeschooling with his friends, my mother with her two neighbors drinking wine on the terrace and talking all the time. So I kind of wrote that, and then they said, okay, that I could do it. And then I did like storyboards, but very vague. So it was more like I did like I like that when I do essays, I like that form of saying I have a shopping list. So I did a shopping list of shots for the house, a shopping list for my mother, and a shopping list for other things. So I had, for example, on the shopping list, I had Vanya, my son, gaming, Vanya, homeschooling. I had breakfast. I had provoke him a bit. So on the shopping list can be a shot, but it can also be something I want to achieve. Then for my mother, you know, I went there to meet them, to see what they're doing. I hadn't seen her for a long time. And then I saw she's having a good time with her two neighbors. So I was there first and looked a bit around what they were doing. And then I wrote down, okay, eating together. You know, did you see that they're measuring the 2 meters? And then I had, for example, for Zurich, I also like to use that. I learned that from Jonas Mekas, the New York avant-garde filmmaker. I think it's a very beautiful image, but his friends would tell him, you know, the New York you're filming, it's so not the New York that we know. He was originally from Lithuania, then fled the Second World War and ended up in New York. They said, you know, your New York is full of parks and snow and picnics. And then Jonas Mekas said, well, I'm not filming New York. I'm filming my childhood. It's my New York fiction. And that's really one of the major things I've learned at the beginning. Do you understand? So he's never filming. You're not filming the streets. You're filming your street. And that's your perspective. So his New York is parks and snow and picnics, but yours is not, everybody's different. And now I lost the thread. Wait, from, exactly. So I'm filming my Zurich fiction. So the third shopping list was, I want to see the Zurich mountain that we see once, for example. Then I knew I want to have birds. So I kind of, and that was about it. And then I started filming. So I had maybe 30 minutes of material. And then with my editor, we actually just took out stuff because we wanted it kind of this character of 16 millimeter with, you know, when the film ends, there comes this kind of flash and scratches. Did you see them? So I wanted those inside. So we actually just took out material. We didn't edit. You know, usually you edit, you add stuff behind each other, and we just took out. And then while editing, I saw what is missing. So the text was written during editing. And then I gave it parallel. So I always, while I'm editing, the sound designer gets one version and can already work on that one. Just now I was doing a series and they do it completely differently. You first edit and then it goes into sound. But in my films, I never do that. I do it parallel. So, you know, I kind of like the thing of shopping list, but sometimes I also draw diagrams. you know, what do I want to achieve? And then I write, okay, first it's like home and gaming and brushing teeth, and then, you know, like a little script. But if you like to draw, what I also do, I do mood boards. So I take pictures from, I just steal pictures, you know, my own ones, but also from the internet, from painters, from photographers. And then I create like a mood board. I put them on one page or on 5 pages. And it also gives me and also the people who need to work with me a feeling of what I want to do. You know, so if I would tell you, okay, do a shopping list and also maybe find 10 images that you think from the sensibility, from colors, from light, are what you want to do, like a reference. I really like that way of working, but I like pictures very much. I like to approach a story visually also. So for me, it helps. There's a German director I really like. He said, you know, in filmmakers, there's 3 categories. There's musicians, writers, and painters. And I like that because music you create completely differently than a text or than a painting. So, yeah.
Creo que hay algo que Andrea acaba de tocar que me parece muy, muy lindo y es un poco sacar referencia a Jonas Mekas, pero ella creo que lo ha sintetizado de una manera que para ustedes puede ser muy, muy importante, la manera en que lo pueden tomar, que es apropiarse, ¿no? Apropiarse pues, de su cine, de las imágenes que ustedes pueden abordar, reinterpretar desde lo que es importante para ustedes y darles un significado. Creo que el significado que uno le pone a las imágenes es lo que puede hacer la diferencia de ese espacio, ¿no? Hablaba de las calles de Nueva York, no son las calles de Nueva York, son las calles de Nueva York que yo quiero poner, que recuerdan algo de lo que es importante para mí y que se convierten a través de mi mirada en algo personal y en algo importante. Y a partir de ahí ustedes pueden empezarle a dar una representación y un significado totalmente diferente a esa imagen. Y por ende otros pueden conectar con eso. Creo que eso es muy, muy lindo y habla un poco de seguir sembrando, ¿no? De desarrollar esta mirada fílmica para poder hacer un cine que sea importante y transformador. Primero para uno y después pues, probablemente puede ser para otros.
And let's take an example, the Sonora market. We've all the tourists, the filmic tourists have been there now. So for me, it's very much different than for you or for you. So how do you film the Sonora market? You know, I would do portraits of all the stuff you could buy because I was like, but you know, there were children with their mothers selling things. So maybe you're interested in spending time with a child who has to be with their mother in the market. What do they do? You know, do they get bored? Do they look at the cell phones? Are they hungry? Like that can be, the Sonora can be just that child. The Sonora market can also be like 10 moments, 10 images of half a minute of impressions. It's different in the morning, then it's at noon, then it's in the evening. You can do a little documentary there of one of the sellers. You can portray the people who come to buy stuff. It's so many different, but for everyone, it's a different market and you have to film it in a different way. So one thing can be more documentary style. Another approach can be more formal, where you have really like just 10 images, you know, 10 moments of, 20 seconds. One can be kind of fun, you know, maybe that child sees a little animal and is contemplating it. It can be also 2 minutes on that. So it's really your perspective of that market, your point of view, you know, your Sonora fiction, and it's not mine, it has to be yours. So that would be nice that you keep in mind when you do these short pieces, that you pick something and don't think too long, you know. I tend to think too long sometimes, and then I think, oh, Sonora Mark is good. And then I'm like, oh no, maybe my grandmother, she's old. And then I'm like, oh no, but you. So I'm very, I have a lot of ideas very fast, and then I get confused. But don't think too much, pick a place or a person, and then really think which is your personal approach to it. And just try out one style or one idea. It's at film school, and even now sometimes we just want to do too much at the beginning. And do this also as an exercise in quick decisions. Pick something and then decide. Maybe as a reference, you can have a short film, you can have a picture, you can have a song also as a reference. I think for me it's very helpful to work with references. It's also, so that's. But you ask questions. What are you curious about? Yes.
Por favor. Sí. Edgar.
Gracias. Bueno, mi pregunta sería... ¿En inglés?
No, you can.
¿Cuál sería una recomendación si yo quiero poner un ensayo o transformar un ensayo a algo narrativo, de ficción y con un guión?
Is it something you already have?
Que estoy tratando de hacer, sí.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a question I ask myself every day, That's also very important. When after even 20 years, I know some things, but I don't know a lot of things. So I personally would do the same thing. I would see, okay, what is my essay about? The theme? The emotion you want to portray? Is it a message? Maybe it's a political message. What else can it be? A theme, a person, a message. It can be something that happened. And then, so you have it in an essay, let's say, which, if you want to do a narrative out of that, I think I would start asking myself, why do I want to make a narrative? Is it the person that interests me, the character, el protagonista? Or is it like a message I want to say, a political one, let's say? And then I'd start from there. So if it's the protagonist, then you have to kind of create a story that doesn't bore me, that is interesting. If it's the message, then you have to see, okay, what characters can help me explain that. So do you have screenplay classes also here? Yeah, like
Script, yes.
Okay. I mean, that's how I would do it if I were you. See, is it plot driven? Is it the story that has to be more present, or is it more character driven? And then you have to create 1 or 2 or 3 interesting characters. And I also do it with kind of shopping lists and photographs. And some people are good you just write the story without thinking too much. You write it down. I often want to do that, but then it doesn't really work. I'm like, okay, today on the plane, I'm going to use 2 hours and write everything down. But so far, it's never happened. But maybe you can just write it down without thinking too much. And then from there, see, okay, where are my characters? Write dialogue for it. That's how I would do it.
¿Quién más?
Hi, how do we find our own voice? How do we achieve that sensibility while we are filming to express our point of view?
See, I don't know. That's why I want to encourage you. You have to try out. I was often a bit scared also of trying out, because I was like, oh, is it going to be good? And I'm a bit, neurotic in that sense. Try it. Let's say use this small essay as something where you pick your character or your place because you kind of feel it, because you have that. All of you have that, you know. Make a choice and then really practice. I mean, practicing, do it all again and again will give you your own voice. You can't have your own voice right at the beginning. It's also stressful making your first film and thinking, oh, I have to have my own voice. You know, you will it's terrible. So kind of, and it's very, I mean, I have to tell myself that every day. It's also about trusting in who you are and what you want to say. But I mean, I have that fear every morning that I want. But it's, you know, just practice, try out different things. There's not everyone has a unique voice from the beginning. Maybe you do a documentary and then you try out something more narrative, something more stylized, something more sensual, and then you will start realizing what your voice is. Maybe your voice is more a subject, you know, that you feel strong about. Somebody else's voice is the visual style. You don't have to have a voice in everything, but it's really about letting go a bit and just doing it and trying out and finding it along the way. But you have to kind of be, yeah, and you know, and not everyone is also feels their intuition. It's not the only way to do a film. Your own voice can also be if you have like really wild, colorful, loud ideas, that can also be a voice. I would just, you know, if I was different, I would also encourage myself to just try out more things. But yeah, I was never thinking of, I have to work within my style. I was just trying to be honest with myself.
Thank you.
Well, I do have a question that it's like, I was wondering if your work while you're trying to make an essay or probably a film, if it has helped you to change the way that you see the world, and yeah, that's pretty much the question. Yeah.
For me, yes. Because when each film I started was kind of a question I had, you know, whether in Hotel Belgrade, I think most of you have seen it, huh? In Hotel Belgrade, the question was like, how do I live? Can I live with two cultures inside me? How do I deal with two cultures that are also, in that moment, they were so extreme because of the war that happened in ex-Yugoslavia? But how, you know, do I have to be one or the other, or can I be both? And I was really torn as a person about that, because in the 90s, we didn't speak about this so much, how it is to live with two cultures, you know. And then in Fräulein, I had gone to the new countries after the war, to Croatia, Bosnia a lot, and seen how young people were very free with the idea of living in a new country. And I saw the generation of my mother and my parents who had big problems with the country that had fell apart. So I decided to make a film where I had 3 characters with different experiences of former Yugoslavia, but also of migration. You know, the young one who kind of moves around almost like a globetrotter, and the older ones who wants to go back one day, like a lot of people, they want to go back, but where do they go back to? Because all the children or the friends are in the new place. So I always started with the question where I actually wanted to explore or didn't have an answer to. And then after the film, I was like, oh yeah, okay, now it's a bit clear. And I like that. I once read a long time ago, you know, the quotes are not always true, because it's always easier to talk about a film after you've made it. But Von Kar-wai once said, he said that sometimes he knows what the film is about when he writes a script. And sometimes he actually knows it when he starts shooting. This is exactly what it's about. And sometimes he realizes it in editing. And sometimes he only knows it after he's seen it on screen. And it's a bit of an anecdote, you know, but I took this anecdote with me because, you know, when you in film school, but also later in the world, when you talk to financiers, to your producers, it's always like, what is it about? And in a way, it's very important to know it, but it's also true that sometimes we just don't quite know it at the right beginning, so it's also a process.
Ok, creo que vamos a pasar a ver la otra película y después regresamos. ¿Va?
Entonces, la otra, the other short film I did this year for Locarno, they asked 11 filmmakers, also Cyril Schäubling that you met, to make a maximum 3-minute piece called Postcards from the Future. So, let's see.
Was soll ich machen? Das Hemd anlassen? Nein. Aber ich muss kommen. Alle denken, dass Frauen nicht können, nicht sehen. Niemand sieht. Wir arbeiten den ganzen Tag. Schulter und Leben sind unsichtbar. Ich kann so nicht alleine werden. Ich weigere mich wertlos zu sein, weil ich keinen Mann habe. Ich werde die Haare so abrasieren. Ich muss das Schiff finden, das mich wiederbringt. Ich fühle mich schwerelos, schuldet. Da sind die Hände zum Schaffen. Die laufen in verschiedene Richtungen. Das ist eine Frau, aber sie hat was Mann. Die haben sich an der Hand. Das ist so gut. Und dann dachte all die Menschen aus. Ich kann nicht bleiben. Ich will es würdig sein für mich und mein Kind. Ich will nicht zu wissen, was ich kann. Jetzt geht's los. Der Foto ist fertig. Ich bin sichtbar. Und ich werde es auch wieder.
So here you see, I only had a very short time to make it. It was a bit hard for me, the postcards from the future subject. I was like, what am I going to talk about the future? There's a lot of things in the past that are still to be revisited. And I actually have a new project that plays in the 19th century. And then I thought, okay, I'll just use the main character of the new project that is not written. That's why she's dressed in the 19th century clothes and have her travel in time. And here I filmed with an iPhone. You know, I watched all those iPhone commercials and I thought, I'll try that. And to be honest, it was good, but not as easy as I thought, because even when you shoot on an iPhone and you shoot during the day, you need filters. So once you need filters, you need a new case. And then, the iPhone, because it's so light, it shakes. So the Patrick, who did the color corrections, he said, "Oh, I'm gonna lend you my gimbal." So I had a gimbal. So at the end, it turned out, I had again a little backpack with me with equipment. But if you're going to shoot out with your iPhones, really think about the lighter the camera is, the shakier it is. So you have to use a tripod or really be aware of that. I think it's good images. Now the quality wasn't so good, but it was made for the Piazza Grande in Locarno, and it looked really good on the big screen. So the quality is amazing. But you have the same issue with sound, like with the other cameras. You need extra sound, and you need to be aware that it's light. But you're very flexible with it. That's a good thing about it. When I shot, I did use an app called Filmic Pro, because it costs like €10 or $10. You can play with the aperture, But yeah, I mean, I think you can just also do with the normal video functions. And yeah, so here again, I did some drawings about these different worlds, the shopping lists, from shopping lists old time, transfer to the new time, and then shopping list Zurich. And then also as we edited, we were writing the voice.
¿Alguno de ustedes quiere hacer una pregunta respecto a la película que acabamos de ver? Por favor.
Well, I was wondering, with the period of time that you had to do this, which was 3 minutes, how did you manage to make it work? Because we currently have a project and I only have 8 minutes for the story. So was that pressure for you, or how did you make it work?
I mean, I had 4 minutes. It's 3.5 now, but maximum was 4 minutes. The interesting thing was that a lot of the other postcards from the future, from like a French director and other directors, were like 8 minutes at the end. I'm like, you said 4 minutes. Why are all the other films longer? I really like a good Swiss person, 3.5. I mean, honestly, it comes a bit also with experience that I know what I can do in 4 minutes. So but it's a very good question, because often we want to do too much. So it would be good for is it an essay or a documentary? Fiction. I mean, if you write the script with dialogue, you pretty much see how long it will be, because I think that rule of that 1 page is 1 minute is not so bad, because even when you have descriptions, or if you have more descriptions or more dialogue, you can kind of count on that. So if your script is 30 pages long, it's never going to be an 8-minute film. And then when you see that you have too much, then you can think of, for example, is there something you can make it simpler or take out? Is there one, I don't know, is there one character, or is there one plot that maybe it's too much? Sometimes it's good to reduce, then you get to the core. Do you have a script for it? How long is it? So it's 6 pages long. Yeah, I would probably do like more. I would probably, it depends also if it's a lot of dialogue or if it's more atmosphere. But I mean, I think for an 8-minute film, you can also do up to 10 pages or 12 in order also to be sure to have material you can take out in the editing. Because that's another thing, you know, writing a script is one world. Then shooting is the second step. It's different from writing, and new things should be able to happen in shooting. And then you have editing when you again are in a like a third job where you should also be able to change and add things. So it's kind of good to have a bit more material. Yeah. Does that help a bit or? Yes?
I have another question. Did you always write your script as the first step, or is there any other way to you?
Sí,
Lo voy a decir en español.
sí, sí, sí.
Es que ni siquiera sé cómo decirlo en español, por eso.
Conozco ese problema muy bien.
O sea, ¿hay alguna forma, hay alguna manera o alguna vez usted ha intentado primero grabar y filmar sin saber todavía qué es lo que quiere contar? Es como, esta pregunta me surgió porque pues ahorita nos habla de que pues, lo escribir es como lo más importante porque ahí reflejas qué es lo que quieres contar, ¿no? Y de ahí ya partes el cómo. Pero, bueno, no sé, ¿alguna vez has estado en ese proceso donde ha sido al revés?
No. You know, I probably am not courageous enough to do it in that way. When I did this film, and also my mom, my son, and me, I didn't have scripts. I had these shopping lists, which are very loose. So you don't, and you kind of have to have a bit of courage and faith that at the end you will get to what you wanted. So I haven't. I would probably, I'm more of a, how do you say in English, or the Streber. It's you know, it's a person who is at school who always writes down what the teacher says. So I have that part in me, so I'm not so free to kind of just say, okay, I'll film. I kind of have to have a little bit of security. So I do need something. If it's a written essay that reflects something I want to tell, or if it's again a mood board or a very loose shopping list, but I need something. But you know, there's no, I mean, let's say for this exercise that you will be doing in the next 2 weeks, it's a great exercise. Just do it, because at some point you do have to try, you do have to decide what you want to say, but it could be in the editing, but try it out.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was curious, so I need to...
Yeah, no, it's good.
Thank you very much.
¿Quién más? Well, Andrea, hey, how you do decide to put to make this this epoch film and then to convert it to a political film at the end? Yes, this last one film.
Well, I was now working on this new project that plays in the 19th century. I started to do some research, and I went to the library, and then, I mean, I discovered something that is very obvious, but for me it was new. I was a bit maybe naive or stupid before. I realized that there's no texts by women in the middle of the 19th century because they weren't writing except for nuns or very bourgeois. No, there was bourgeois, but kind of the very specific class that wrote diaries. So, but there wasn't much material on women, about women, and that made me a bit sad, even if it's kind of, I could have thought about this before, but I kind of put it aside a bit. And then I realized, and I talked to some other also friends and political activists, and there's, in a certain way, we have an invisible history. I mean, also the simple man or human being who is not from a higher class has an invisible history, but women have it too. And that's where it kind of, I thought, okay, I have to bring this woman from the past, I have to give her a voice. And then there was on the 14th of June, we always have the demonstrations, the women's demonstrations in Zurich. There was a big strike 2 years ago because women are still paid 30% to 40% less wages in Switzerland. It's a lot. And they get much less when they're old. So there's a lot of problem. There's no equality yet economically, even in Switzerland. And that's when it kind of came that I thought a long time whether I should put the demonstration inside or not, because first I thought I might be a bit too on the nose or a bit too educational. But I kind of think it's really the time to speak about this, to speak about to speak up politically, all of us, whether it's people with different cultures, minorities, but women are not a minority. We're like 50% of the population. So I was like, I'll leave it inside. I also, with Rabea, the actress, it wasn't intentional. So I was walking through the demonstration and I saw her. And so it was before we filmed the older things. So I filmed her. I was like, I have the camera. So it's a bit different quality because it's not with that app and it's not with the filter. So that came actually without being in the script. So I do it sometimes.
¿Alguien más? Aprovechen.
See, anything, you can ask anything. If you don't have questions, then you all have to sit down for 5 minutes and write down which person you will portray or what place.
How do you deal with the camera? Because I see your son in the film, and okay. And how do you deal when people became so self-conscious about the camera when they're on? How do you deal with that? Because in my family, my brother hates it. Every time he sees the camera, he's like, "Don't shoot, stop it." How do you deal with that?
Well, it was very difficult. I mean, you see it in the film that he's like rolling his eye. I mean, he hated me. But it's kind of he's 14, he was 12. And that's exactly when his natural hatred for his mother started, which is not, so he was like, why are you doing this? And he was so embarrassed in front of his friends. But I mean, I had no choice. I'd written the proposal. They said, you can do it. As a filmmaker, you have to be sometimes also a bit egoistic and mean. So I was a bit selfish. I knew I need to shoot. And he really didn't want to be in the film, but his friends wanted to. So I kind of, I said, Vanya, I see Yuri and Haruna, they're really into it. And so sometimes, I mean, now he likes that we did it together, but during filming, you should see his, how he looked at me. And so sometimes I also blackmailed him a bit, that I would only, but he was very strict. You can only shoot for 20 minutes and then you have to leave us alone. And then I'd say, okay, I'll come again, but you can do some gaming instead. So it was a bit of dealing. Yeah. And for you now as upcoming filmmakers, important, it's really important to be empathetic with the people you film. But sometimes you also have to do things that, that you need for the film and they don't like so much. So yeah, and I was really scared of telling him then that it will be on TV. And then he came home and he said, all the others are happy that they're on TV. I hate you. But I mean, it's nice. It's like also it's a personal document because it was 2.5 years ago, and now he's taller than me. He's like a teenager, young man, and here he's still a child. So, but I did a lot of dealing with them. Yeah, pizza and gaming and. And yeah, sorry, one thing, maybe if you want to portray your brother, just start with that and also use that, because I use it in the film too. You can see that he's not so into it.
Todavía tenemos tiempo para un par de preguntas.
Gracias. In that case, the relation was with your son, but how do you manage when the relation with the person is filmed is like a stranger? How do you start that relationship to make the empathy works and make the process fluid?
I mean, also to be honest with you, yeah, to be fluid, good. It's not always easy in my films because in Yuga Divas, for example, I don't know if you've seen it. It's my documentary. I spent a lot of time with the women before, the artists, but we never talked about what I wanted to talk to in the film. So I kind of went to their concerts, to their exhibition, but I kind of tried not to talk too much to them so they can tell me everything in the film. When we started filming, so the trust was they saw me coming back to see them. They felt that I was interested. You can't just walk into a person's house and ask them an intimate question. So time is trust also. When we started filming, they said, we're not going to tell you anything because we told you everything. And I said, no, we never spoke. But for them, my presence was as if they had told me everything. So, probably wasn't the best way I did it there. Then here, I also, I do go, the people know me before I start filming. That's one way. There's other directors who say, come with the camera right away. That's why I told you, start filming your brother and then you'll see where it goes. So there's these two, how you build trust is a very personal thing. You can build it by, let's say you have one person in mind. You first spend 3 days with them. You kind of also sense what you want to film, then you go and film. Or you can say, I go right away. But trust is also something kind of, you have to show interest in people and empathy, and that's probably what I try to do, what the keys. But it's not always easy. Also in my feature films with the actors, there can be, there's trust and then there's mistrust because they give a lot, so it's always also fluid. You don't have the trust never until the end of yeah.
It can evolve, no? Every time. No?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bueno, en relación a lo que vamos a trabajar en los próximos días, estamos hablando habíamos dicho entre Andrea y yo, 10, 12 días para que pudieran empezar a trabajar estos cortos, estas películas. Creo que es suficiente, hay mucho que pensar, a lo mejor que escribir, que bajar en una libreta, elementos que pueden ir incorporando para dar paso a las narrativas, a las ideas narrativas que quieran abordar, pero sobre todo creo que es eso, escoger, ¿no? ¿Qué les interesa, qué les importa? Y a partir de eso creo que pueden desarrollar primero intenciones y después ir plasmando para que puedan desarrollar esto que me imagino todos y todas ustedes van a tener como intenciones de filmar. Ya nos pondremos de acuerdo para que lo llevemos a cabo. Andrea, ¿quieres agregar algo más?
Yeah, maybe to as a Streber, the person that writes everything down, to summarize it. So you have either the possibility to pick a person that you want to portray, a place, Or you can also do it more in a fiction way, like the last short that I showed you. You can have a person lead through a short story. And then I would really, because you have little time, so you have like 3 days to think about the idea, I would probably work with the shopping list and drawings or a mood board. Don't think in 3 days, I mean, maybe you can. You don't expect that you can write a script that decides everything, but more work with the shopping list. Let's say 3 days, the idea, shopping list, organizing, a camera. Then maybe give yourself 3 days to shoot, 3 days to edit with sound, and that's 2 weeks. You know, it's so you kind of have enough time for each step.
Bueno, Andrea, muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Todavía tenemos oportunidad de ver todas sus películas. Están durante el festival en este foco que ha sido dedicado a ella. Y bueno, hoy pasa su ópera prima en la Cineteca Nacional, su primera película. Los invitamos a las 8 de la noche. Creo que es una de las pocas oportunidades que tendremos para ver sus películas en el cine, sobre todo una película que tiene ya algún tiempo. Entonces vamos a verla al cine, acerquémonos más a la propuesta de Andrea Štaka y a una ópera prima que es muy, muy valiente y arriesgada en muchos sentidos. Creo que esto es parte de lo que nos puede ayudar también a ir encontrando pues nuestra propia voz, ¿no? Acercándonos a las filmografías de cineastas como Andrea y sobre todo a sus primeras películas, ¿no? Que son películas que en muchos sentidos, y que eso es lo que uno agradece cuando hace una primera película, no son películas perfectas, son películas que tienen muchas intenciones y mucho riesgo alrededor a la hora de acercarse a explorar cuál va a ser nuestra voz hacia el futuro como jóvenes directores.
Sí, muchas gracias y work well.
Gracias, Andrea.
Thank you.